Well, here I'm at again talking about chess, the mental sport. Of course, what a lot of you know is that today was the final match in the Lindores Abbey online rapid challenge, which is part of the overall Magnus Carlsen chess tour. It's leg number 2, and the final came down to Hikaru Nakamura and Daniel Dubov of Russia. So let's talk a little bit about what happened and then some other things. We'll move on to some other things. So if you've watched it today, like I did, Dubov won it. Jan Gustafsson would say the Armageddon game. And I did flip between chess.com team of GM Robert Hess and Alexandra Botez of Botez Live. And then I jumped over to, it was on Chess 24. It was Jan Gustafsson a little bit, Sasha from India, Peter Svidler, and Peter Leko of Hungary. Svidler, of course, is from Russia. So I ended up spending more time on Chess 24 today because it was hard to jump back and forth. Anyways, that's irrelevant. In game 1, it was 4 rapid games of 15 minutes and 10 seconds per side in game number 1. The announcers, Svidler and Leko, basically said Dubov wasn't really playing to win that game, which is not his normal style. Normally he's Fischer-esque and trying to annihilate the guy and go on the offensive and use novelties. They said he played conservative, basically not to lose. Hikaru had a somewhat of an advantage, but he didn't press it. He kind of played not to lose in that first game. It's always risky business if you ask me to play not to lose. You don't want to be like a wild man, do crazy stuff playing to win, but you just have to be smart about it. Anyways, in game 2, Nakamura came out swinging pretty good, had a pretty good position, but then it's one of those deals where the initial tempo and setup and pressure, Dubov held him off, and he eventually was able to turn into a victory because all of Nakaru's pieces were on one side of the board, the queen side, and his king included, and his position pretty much fell apart. It's kind of like if you ever look at a frog that gets thrown into a tank with crayfish, and I've seen this happen in high school. These kids did that. The crayfish over time just picks. Pretty soon, that frog is nowhere to be seen. And that's kind of what happened in that game. So game number 3, with the pressure on, Nakamura came out swinging, came out on the offensive, put the pedal to the metal, and did not stop. For a while there, it looked like Dubov was going to hold him off and take it in a draw, then win the match type of thing. But Nakamura kind of got him going one way and then moved his pieces to the other, attacked all the weak spots in Dubov's queen sides, a couple pawns. Then one thing led to another, and before you know it, he's got that pawn down there, about to queen it on the A1 square. And as you know, Nakamura loves getting past pawns and getting it down and causing pressure. So game number 4, both guys just basically played for a draw. Nobody took really any risk. Came down to, like I said, as Jan Gustafsson would say, Armageddon. I love that accent, that German accent. And I was in Germany 2 years ago. It was great, in Berlin. Anyways, back to this. In Armageddon, it was even for a while, but then Nakamura's position deteriorated in a heartbeat. Before you know it, Dubov has about, let's see, he had the rook, the knight, the queen, all attacking the, I guess it would be the, if I could do it right, the E7 square. No, sorry, the F7 square. Core problem there for Nakamura is he left his king in the center, and it got pinned by the queen. The E7 pawn, king got pinned on behind the E7 pawn with the queen sitting there. And then Dubov smartly got rid of traded his bishop for a knight in the center, and that knight blocked the rook from coming down and hitting F7 type of thing. So everything was centered on F7 like a sledgehammer, if you will. And Nakamura was tangled up, and before you know it, it's over. So congratulations to Dubov. He's a gunslinger. He's a sniper. He plays to win. It reminds me of Fischer in a few ways, that he doesn't like to accept these losses. He's out to win, and that's it, and he'll try new things. Kudos to him. Now, one of the announcers on Chess 24, PHN, Peter Hein Nielsen, who's the trainer for Carlsen, made a comment about he heard Nakamura being interviewed the day before after winning the second mini match to tie it, saying he's the clear favorite in round 3, this final match, because he's the fastest in the world, etc., etc. Just he's the clear favorite. And PHN made the comment about you got to be careful a little bit about it's good to have confidence, but you don't want to overdo it. And I would second that. Nakamura has the right to make a statement because his track record shows that out. But Dubov has won the World Rapid Championship in 2018. And he's an up-and-coming star, if you will. And he really showed a lot of mettle in this tournament by downing some people, even downing some heavyweight super GMs, and he was down for the count in at least one of those matches and came back and won it. So I have found it doesn't matter what it is, whether you're playing a game of Risk or ping pong or tennis, which are things I love to do, or chess. You really don't want to give your opponent fuel for fire, especially in something like this, because Dubov, by winning this, just won 45 grand. But more importantly, he now is automatically entered into the final leg, the Grand Tour Championship Finals. I think it's in August. And there's a prize fund there of 300 grand. And if you win that, it's like, wow. I mean, that's a big deal. So far, Magnus Carlsen's in because he won the Magnus Invitational. Dubov is in. But back to my thing about confidence. You don't want to get fuel to the fire. I've seen it happen in tennis. I've given fuel to the fire to my opponent, perhaps, and that's what happens. They get on fire. Or ping pong. But I've had people do it to me where they say, I'm going to crush you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to do this. Well, that just gets my dander up and says, oh, yeah, we'll see about that. And I'm out to get them. So I step it up. And maybe that was a little bit of what happened here today with Dubov and Nakamura. I think Nakamura might have given Dubov a little extra fire. And don't think that Carlsen hasn't communicated with Dubov. You know that Dubov was one of his seconds for the 2018 World Championship match. So you know they talk a lot. And they have very attacking games. So anyways, so I think it's interesting. Did Nakamura give Dubov a little extra fuel for the fire? Perhaps. But it is what it is. Now let's talk about these Armageddon games, because the announcers may have been Chess 24, may have been Chess.com announcers. I'm not sure which, but one of them mentioned about they get a lot of chat comments from people watching, you and me, about Armageddon, just one game, winner take all, seems kind of unfair. And it's a lot of drama. Baseball did it where they're kind of their wild card format is they take the 2 bottom teams that might qualify for the playoffs. They have them play one game, winner take all wild card. And they kind of got that, they said, from I believe it was the Twins. One of the years the Twins and the Tigers, I think it was 87 actually, tied for the American League West. And so they had a 1-game playoff. And Major League Baseball said, hey, wait, that's rather exciting. Let's keep this. Don't do this 2 out of 3 stuff. People love this. And that's kind of what this Armageddon is. But on the other hand, the other side will say, and I'm a little bit that way, what's coming up here, is 1 game, winner take all. It's such a time pressure game, 5 minutes for white. In this case, 4 minutes for black. A tie wins it for black. You don't have a second chance. So the drama is ultra exciting. I'm sure all the thousands of people, including me, were glued to that game. But what if you had 2 out of 3 games of Armageddon? They wouldn't add much time to it. Then you've got the first game, and then maybe Nakamura can make a comeback, and then maybe that dramatic 3rd game, winner take all. But they've at least had a chance. It's sort of like the NFL. They changed the overtime rules to give each team potentially a possession instead of sudden death immediately, and if you score, that's it. It makes it a little bit more fair. So I actually am advocating, I said this on the chat on chess24.com, how about a 2 out of 3 Armageddon? It wouldn't take much longer. It's just as thrilling. You have more ups and downs. You can make a comeback, etc., and you still have a huge potential for that one winner-take-all game. So it's kind of a win-win-win. Anyways, my 2 cents worth. Go ahead and chime in. Thank you, and over and out, Sports Blabb.